You get to choose your hard. You're either going to choose it up front or it's going to be chosen for you later when you have to make hard decisions that you don't want to make. So that's a huge lesson I've learned so far.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is your host, Joshua Gillow. And today, my guest is a successful entrepreneur and co-founder of GreenPal, an online platform that connects homeowners and local lawn care professionals. He's born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, and he developed an early interest in entrepreneurship and started his first business at the age of 13, mowing lawns in a neighborhood. After completing high school, he continued to grow his landscaping business and eventually founding Peachtree, which he grew to be one of the largest landscaping companies in Tennessee. And under his leadership, Peachtree generated over $10 million a year in annual revenue. In 2013, Peachtree was acquired by a national company and one of the largest acquisitions in the landscaping industry. Following that acquisition, he turned his focus to a new venture called GreenPal. That's what we're going to learn about today. So since that founding, GreenPal has grown rapidly and now serves over 200,000 active users, completing thousands of transactions per day. The company has been recognized by several publications, including Entrepreneur Magazine, which dubbed it the Uber for lawn care. Moreover, GreenPal is entirely self-funded, a rare accomplishment in the startup world. The company has been profitable since the first year of operation, and as of 2021, is reported to doing over $30 million in revenue. Definitely a remarkable achievement for a bootstrap startup. He is also an experienced public speaker and has given talks on topics such as entrepreneurship, marketing, small business growth at conferences and events across the United States. He's passionate about helping other entrepreneurs succeed and is known for his expertise in bootstrapping businesses from zero revenue to profitability and exit. Welcome to the show, Brian Clayton.
Joshua, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. So, wow, what a story. So, tell me a little bit about getting started at age 13. Like what possessed you to start a business? Why not just go work, on the side or something like that for somebody? Why start a business that young? What possessed you to do that?
Yeah, I'd like to tell you that I was born some natural entrepreneur, some business owner, just innately knew how to start a business. But the reality is I didn't. I was actually forced into my first business by my dad. He got tired of watching me play Nintendo all day, and he interrupted a game of Super Mario Kart one day and said, "Hey, get off your butt. I got a gig for you. You're going to go mow the neighbor's yard." And he made me go cut the neighbor's grass. And luckily he did that because I remember I got paid $20 for an hour of work. And that was just awesome to me as a 13-year-old. I thought, man, something clicked. I was like, why doesn't everybody just do this? I don't understand why anybody would just go work a normal job when you can just do something like this. And I remember I started passing out flyers all over the neighborhood and little by little had like 10, 20, 30 customers. And by the time I graduated high school, I had like 100 customers that I was mowing yards for. Wow. And stuck with that little lawn mowing business through college. Went to school at night and mowed grass during the day. And when I graduated college, I had to make a decision. Was I going to be a lawn guy the rest of my life? Which I didn't really want to be a lawn guy. But I started doing some back of the envelope math, and I was like, when I'm making mowing yards, I'm going to take a big pay cut if I go try to get a job somewhere. So it was a pretty easy decision. Mm-hmm. And I made a little business plan with what little I did actually learn in business school and started working that plan. And it became real clear to me that this could be my lane, that I could actually build a real company in this industry, and started learning from companies bigger than me and going to other markets and studying the biggest company in town. And little by little ended up growing it to one of the larger landscaping businesses in the state of Tennessee. Eventually 150 employees, around $10 million a year in revenue. And then 2013, that business was acquired by a national company. And so growing that business just from me and a push mower to 90 trucks going out every day, I learned quite a bit about how to get a business going.
Man, I bet you do. Holy crap. That's really, really cool. And when you started it, obviously not at 13, but throughout the process, was your goal to be acquired, or did it just come up as an opportunity?
It's a really good question. So if you are planning on ever selling your business, you need to start thinking about that today, because the way you run a business as kind of a lifestyle business, or maybe a business that you are going to hand off to kids one day, or you're just going to run it the rest of your life, is very different than how you should run a business that you plan on exiting, that you plan on selling. And so for me, I really thought I was going to run this company for 20, 30, 40 years. I thought, hey, it's clicking, it's profitable, I enjoy it. And there was something I didn't realize that was going on while I was running the business was, as I was kind of growing up and learning how to grow a company, I was evolving alongside the business. And almost like a video game, every 2 or 3 years, every level of the game, I was evolving. I was getting new skills. I was growing. And that was like fulfilling in a way that I didn't know that was happening at the time. And I guess it was year 11 or 12, I had plateaued as far as that personal growth had been concerned. Like I wasn't being challenged in the way that I was in the first 3 or 4 levels of the game. And that was weighing on me in a way that I didn't really understand at the time. But now looking back, I understand it clearly that I was not satisfied. I was not fulfilled by the business anymore. And I was almost, in a weird way, annoyed by it. And I wasn't happy to go into the office every day. I wasn't excited about running it. I was just done. And from the moment I had that kind of epiphany, to exploring how to get a business sold, what needed to happen, how to court buyers, was over 2 years. So it was a very excruciating 2-year process of reverse engineering the business and rebuilding it from the inside out, and getting it to a point where it could be acquired, and then realizing all the mistakes I had made running the business in a lifestyle type of business, and not want to be acquired. So, if you're going to do that, make the decision now. And then there's a great book called Built to Sell, where it lays out very clearly a roadmap on things you should be thinking about and doing now if you want to sell your business in 5 years.
I love it, dude, because I know I got in the business thinking this is much better than working for somebody. I worked at a restaurant when I was younger, and I'm like, I didn't mind it. It was easy. I didn't have to think a whole lot. But then when I started working for myself and seeing what kind of money you can made, and I'm like, holy moly, then you start leveraging others, to be part of your team, and you start to build all that, and all these muscles you've got to build, right? Because when you're the only operator in the beginning, you're like, I can do the mowing part, I can do the building part. But then you've got to be, how about this whole managing thing? And what about managing a business? And what about managing books? And what about, like, all of these other muscles have to be developed as you go. And then to your point, hey, I eventually want to sell this thing. Now I've got to learn how to become the person who can do that, right? There's this whole development of personal in the personal nature. And I always tout that is, you're never going to grow. Your business will never grow faster than you are.
That's right.
And if you're not growing faster than your business, you're not outpacing it with personal growth, then you're not going to go anywhere. So if you want to be stuck in business forever and own your job, do nothing. Just do your thing, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to grow past that, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to get out there, and you're going to have to face your biggest fear. So walk us through how that worked for you and how you went from 13 to selling a company later in life, especially when it wasn't even developed to do that. But like your mindset shift is more what I'm interested in. How did you go from that guy pushing the lawnmower at 13 to the guy selling a business?
Yeah, there was kind of like moments along the way that stand out, that epiphanies that I had along the way. I guess maybe year 5 or 6, I realized that I wasn't actually in the landscaping business at all. I was in the sales business. And that while I had, 50 trucks going out every day and dozens of employees and lawnmowers and mechanics and all of this stuff, that none of that really mattered. What mattered was the sales process on top of all that, and running that sales team and organizing the sales process and getting the right people on the bus to run that sales engine was what's going to take us from 1 million to 3 million to 5 million to 10 million. And if I didn't get that right, if I couldn't get the sales engine right, that none of it even mattered. And everything that I was so proud of with respect to all of the vehicles and trucks we had and lawnmowers and iron and equipment and how great our customers' properties looked, none of that mattered. None of that was going to get me to 5 or 10 million if I didn't figure out the sales process, and I couldn't really dial that in. And that took, 5 years to figure out and get right. Because back then in 2005, there was no YouTube University. There weren't podcasts. There were some books, but there really wasn't a way to easily learn best practices. So it was very much me. I would go to conferences, and I would try to talk to people with companies much bigger than mine. And I would try to meet with the person. Like I went to Chicago one year and met a guy who was running a $80 million a year landscaping company, and just learned 5 things from him. And I would do that over and over again and try to apply it to my little business and get it to where I was working on the business and less in the business. And that took a long, long time. And then also working on myself. So 3 things at once: on the business, in the business, and then on yourself, because you as the founder have to learn the skills around sales, around leadership, around management, around accounting and bookkeeping and legal. And you have to be 80-20 good at all these things to pull something like this off. Otherwise, you're just going to be in that self-employed bucket. And most business owners don't realize it, that they're stuck in the self-employed bucket. They're not really business owners. And that's a big kind of chasm to cross. And a lot of it is working on yourself and making those long-term bets on yourself to get the skills you need to get to cross that chasm.
No doubt, dude. And I own my job for the longest time. Guys out there listening, don't think we're trying to beat up on you. Trust me, I didn't even know anything else existed. I didn't even realize that. But so, Brian, I'd love to talk to you about that moment when you realized you owned your job and you made that transition. What were some of your first steps to get out and start becoming a business owner instead of an owner of your job?
Yeah. Well, so first off, there's nothing wrong with being self-employed, and there's nothing wrong with quote owning your job if you make good margins and you make good revenue, and you can take that low quality revenue and turn it into high quality revenue. So I know several wealthy people that are self-employed. They just have taken the money they've made doing whatever they do very well and invested in real estate, invested in equities, and that stuff compounds and builds over time. And next thing you know, you're independently wealthy. So there is a path to wealth, maybe even one that's a lot less stressful and a lot more straightforward of being self-employed. So I'm not knocking that. But if you want to be a business owner, if you want to have an asset that you could sell one day, something that maybe you could take 6 months off from and come back, and it not only still be there, but be doing better than it was. It can run and it's running on its own and thriving on its own. That's a whole nother endeavor than just being self-employed. And a lot of it, everybody talks about it, but it does come down to systems and processes and working on those and tuning those and getting those better and better and better, and trying to remove yourself out of the business as much as you can. And it's so hard to do. And that's one of the reasons why I wasn't able to sell my business the moment I wanted to, because I had built this business, which was basically scaffolding around me. And it all depended on me to make the decisions at every moment. And so I had to kind of tear down the scaffolding, so to speak, and put in people in roles and set the goals for those people to succeed. It took a long time to get that right. There's a great book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's a very simple book that walks the reader through this thinking of developing an org chart day one. If you do that right day one, you might say, well, I don't have any employees, I don't need an org chart. Well, you still need an organization of who is chief of marketing, who is chief of product, who's chief of customer service, who is chief of R&D, who's going to be, okay, now, and then who are the people actually doing the work under these columns of people that you're going to eventually need to hire. But start thinking through what these roles look like, and then start peeling your name off one slowly as time goes on, and delegating to contractors, freelancers, and employees to do these things better than you were doing. And start thinking through it that way, rather than everybody's just doing everything and it's just chaos, which is how my business was.
Yeah, mine too, dude. I didn't realize any of this stuff. I read that book and that changed everything for me. E-Myth by Michael
Nobody
Gerber.
teaches us this stuff.
They don't. You get an EIN and we say, here's how you pay taxes, and it's off to the races. You go figure it out, right?
You can go get an MBA and not learn any of this stuff.
Exactly. So when you get out there in the streets and you've got to start fighting for yourself and your profits and all that stuff, it becomes a very different game.
That's right.
I love that, dude. And it's true. I mean, So what were some of the first things you did to start working on yourself, that mindset side, that shift to go from, the business, worker of the business into the business owner side? What were some of the moves you made besides for reading?
Yeah. First was like coming into my style of leadership, kicking and screaming, because I really wasn't a people person, and I really didn't want to admit that I needed to work on a lot of my faults that made me a pretty terrible leader. And one epiphany was I was driving into the office one day, and I was just like, man, I don't want to go here. I don't like a lot of the people that work here. There's all these the customers that I don't like that aren't really that profitable. And they're getting on my nerves. And it was just like, I really just didn't want to go. And then it hit me, and I felt like a victim almost. I felt like, I was like, why does all this stuff suck? And why are things this way? And then it hit me like, you built this. This is a reflection of you. Like, yeah, it really is. I don't know why that just like fell on me like a ton of bricks, but it did. It was like, this is literally a reflection of you. If there's a bunch of people that work for you who are jerks and assholes, it's probably because you are. Yeah. And so then I had to like come to the realization that you get exactly the level of enthusiasm that you deserve. You get exactly the vibration levels that you deserve as the founder, because it really does all start with you. And so from the moment you go in to the moment that you leave the office, you've got to carry the energy. You got to carry the enthusiasm. You got to care about the customers. You got to care about your people. You got to really care. And if you're not willing to do that, then this is probably not a game for you. And if you're not willing to make those changes, then you're not going to be successful in a business that is dependent on employees and people. If you're lucky enough to have a business where you don't have to have employees, I don't know of many that can, but if you're going to have people and you're going to have teammates and you're going to have people serving people, then you're in the people business. And so a lot of it does come down to, what is your enthusiasm level? What is your level of excitement and your level of commitment? How much do you really care about what the standard of excellence is in the business, and how much do you really hold yourself to account? What do you look like? Is your shirt tucked in? Do you carry a level of professionalism when you come into the office? And not that, like, if you fix all these things, that everything else will just magically correct itself. But if you don't fix these things, you don't have a chance of fixing all the other things that's wrong in your business. So I had to do that. And, these days you can get coaches and mentors and consultants to help you through these things. For me, it was just a lot of trial and error back then. But then I was able to avoid these mistakes when I built my second company. So I think a lot of people have to do these things wrong, get fed up, bottom out before they can rebuild and do it the right way.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more. There's nothing that replaces getting beat up in the street. There's nothing that replaces that making the wrong fucking move over and over again, and then hitting the same wall and then having to learn, because those are the lessons that last a lifetime. And like you said, when you start a new company, you're like, I know exactly what to avoid. I know exactly who to hire. I know exactly what to do. And it's so much faster. I know that with second, third, and fourth companies, it's like all of a sudden you're like, I got a direct line to success here, right? It's not going to be easy, but it can be pretty simple because you understand the line of it. So, but that comes from taking all those licks out there on the street. That takes from making all this. You can't avoid them. Guys listening, girls out there listening, you can't avoid the problems. Problems are the gifts we grow from. You must have problems. And the only time you don't have problems is when you're dead. Let's put it that way, right? You just want higher quality problems. That's all, right? You just want to keep raising the standard of your problems so you have bigger things to do. Now, so dude, I love all of this as you're really cranking along here. Now, so go from, Peachtree into starting GreenPal, and how that, were you just bored? I mean, you sold your company, you're now like, I'm free now what? Like, how did that work for you?
Man, it's a really good question. What happened, how it went down is I got the business sold. I was exhausted after I got that company acquired. It was like 2 years of hell and a lot of stressful days, a lot of sleepless nights trying to get the deal done. And after I got it sold, I thought, I'm going to live the good life now, because I don't want to do that ever again. That was really hard. And that was fun for about 3 months, maybe 6, where I was just kind of, reading a lot and taking a lot of vacations and laying on a lot of beaches. And I started to learn about myself that I was wired to want to be in the game. I really want to be a part of a project. I really want to be a part of something that's growing and succeeding and challenging. And I really don't want to do a lot of the things that sucked in the last business over again, but I do want to be a part of something that is bigger than me. And all of that was now wiped out, gone. Like there was I went through a little bit of an identity crisis after I sold that company because it's 15 years. It was all I ever knew. And my employees were kind of like family to me. And now that was all like not there. And I thought, well, okay, I think I want to start another company. I definitely don't want to do that again because that was really hard. But I think I could start a tech company because that'll be so much easier. and I didn't really know what I didn't know. And that was good because if I had known how hard a technology business is to get off the ground, I never would have done it. But I had an idea that I thought, well, what could I do? Well, I know the lawn mowing business really well. And then I started like looking at what Airbnb and Uber were doing at the time. This was 2013, 2014, and they were kind of blowing up. And for the first time, these apps on our phones were making real world experiences happening. Up until then, technology was very much bits. It was very much like a screen and you would interact with a screen and that was it. It was confined to the computer. Mm-hmm. Well, with Uber and you could, a car would appear out of nowhere and Airbnb, you could stay in a stranger's, spare bedroom and that was crazy. And then other stuff, like Postmates and DoorDash were emerging and it's like, man, like this phone is really becoming the remote control for our lives. And this wasn't really clear at the time. Now it is in 2023. It's really clear. But back then, 10, 11 years ago, it wasn't really clear. And I thought, well, for this one little humble industry that I know very well, maybe I could build something like that where you could just order a lawn mowing service like a book on Amazon or like an Uber. And I thought, well, how hard could it be? We'll just get some contractors, we'll get some customers and we'll build the screens and I didn't know how to code. I didn't know how to build software. I had never done any of that. And I thought, well, I'll get a couple of co-founders because that's what you need to do. And then, we'll just pay a dev shop to build what we think it should be. And we'll launch that and we'll just, in 2 years, we'll be done. and so we did all that, and we pulled our money together and spent like $150,000 with a development shop in Nashville where we live. And they took 9 months and built what our vision was and released it. And it was just dead. It like didn't have the features it needed. It was crappy to use. It was buggy. Contractors hated it. Homeowners were like confused by it. It was just dead on arrival. And it was, it really, really sucked because we wasted almost a year and all our money. Because I didn't want to take the proceeds from the sale of my last company and like squander them on this bet. And I didn't want to go backwards in life. And I never wanted to pick up another weed eater ever again. And so I thought this new company kind of needs to sing for its supper. And that was a smart thing that I guess I did by accident because that was those confined, restrained resources was what forced us to do the things we needed to do, which was, okay, let's go get 10 people, 20 people to try to use this crappy app and 5 contractors to use it. And let's just study everything about the activity on the platform and ask them and learn from everywhere we're letting them down. And then let's just fix those things. And like almost like a hospital emergency room, let's just triage around what the 3 or 4 most important things are at any given time and just fix those little by little and try to build something here. Because when we were talking to these people using it, they told us that the 20 ways and reasons why we sucked, but they never told us why. They never said, I don't need this. Matter of fact, they were let down that it didn't work. They were let down that the contractor didn't show up or the prices were too high or that it technically didn't work or, you name it. There's 100 things that can go wrong. And they were like let down. They were like, this would be divine if it actually did work. And so that was insight for us that this was worth continuing to pursue. It wasn't like apathy. We never heard meh. And so we kept on it, and little by little, it took a long time. It took like 4 years, because we had to learn how to code. We had to learn how to build software, learn how to do these things ourselves. And 3 or 4 years went by, and we had 1,000 customers in Nashville, still in one market. And then we started expanding and figuring out a little playbook on how to roll out into other cities, and little by little. And so now we're like a 10-year overnight success. We're in every city in the United States, around 300,000 people using the app every week to get their lawn mowed. But it was very slow in the early days. And even now, 10 years in, it still is day one where we're a drop in the bucket. We need to get to 1 million users, to have something really impactful. So that's what we're driving towards now.
That's incredible, dude. Holy crap. Going from nothing through, you think, yeah, it's going to be easy, right? We're not pushing mowers. We're not slaving out there, and you get into a whole nother level. So
10 times harder. Yeah. 10 times harder than the first business.
Isn't it crazy though, when you do the intellectual side of things? It's like, it's almost easier just to use your hands, because you can see.
It'd have been easier. Yeah. Would have been so much. There were so many moments like that where it's like, I just had a business that was mowing 1,000 yards a day, and now I can't beg 5 contractors to go submit a price for 5 free properties. And let's say one of them gets hired, I can't even get them to show up on the damn day they're supposed to. So like, all of the reasons why the lawn mowing business sucked, and why it sucks for homeowners to hire lawn care contractors, and they're unreliable and all these things, were now my problem. I had to solve them with technology. And that was something I did not anticipate. I thought it was going to be very easy. Turns out it was 10 times harder than the first company.
So how did you solve that problem, if you don't mind me asking?
We had to get deep into the psychology of why people make decisions and why people do what they do, and figure out what is it that they want, and how do we solve for what they want. Mm-hmm. And then how do we do that on both sides of a transaction, to where it's 10 times easier to do it on our platform versus do it the old way. So contractors want recurring revenue. They want customers. They want customers on the same streets they're already serving. They want people to fall into a schedule every week, every 2 weeks. They want a fair price, and they want a straightforward job to do, and they want to get paid quick. Mm-hmm. And so those were like the pain points we had to solve for contractors. Homeowners want to just push a button, get pricing very quickly, hire somebody who's actually going to show up on the day they're supposed to. That was the big pain point that took us about a year to figure out. We thought it was like they just wanted the cheapest lawn mowing they can get in town. And what we learned was, actually, no, the price didn't matter. It needed to be like in market, but what really mattered was reliability and speed. Yeah, and so figuring out how to solve for both those wants and needs at the same time, and solving for them where consumers could get reliable quotes quick, and when they hired somebody, they did show up. And then that made contractors want to use it. So it is like a flywheel effect. If you get 5 people to try it out, and all 5 have a good experience, they tell 2 of their neighbors, that now you've got like 7, and so now 7 customers on there. Now another contractor comes on, so prices are coming down just a little bit, and now we're able to score the contractors if they show up on time or not. So now they're held a little more accountable. Now there's more reliability. More reliability means more homeowners. More homeowners means, so it's like this reinforcing flywheel where prices go down, density goes up. And that's a very simplistic overview of what we did that took like 5 years to figure out. But that's how we solved it, was just figuring out where in the life cycle of people using this product it was breaking down, and solve for like the top 1 or 2 at a time, and not worry about anything else. And it took a long time. And even still to this day, 10 years in, we're still making it cheaper, faster, more reliable, smoother to order a lawn mowing service. And for a contractor, we're making it to where you can make more money with less headache in the lawn mowing business with GreenPal versus otherwise not.
I'd love to segue. You're going right where I'm going. So I know a lot of listeners here actually own lawn care businesses. So from that perspective, from them, what do you offer for them? And how does it look if they were to want to come on board with you and become one of your guys?
Yeah. So first off, if contractors don't love it, then you don't have a product. And if they don't want to use it, if they're not making more money with less headache on your platform, then you don't have a product. And this is where a lot of Uber for X companies kind of crashed and burned in the early 2000 or 2010s. There was Uber for home cleaning, Uber for laundry service, Uber for valet parking, you name it. And they all pretty much went out of business because they didn't really understand that it started with the supply side, the vendor base. If they didn't love it, then there was no product to kind of order off the shelf for consumers. Sure. Yeah. And so we solved for that and like really kind of erred on the side of the suppliers and still to this day do, in terms of like adjudicating between buyers and sellers. We were probably 60-40 tilted towards suppliers because they have to love it, because if they don't love it, you don't have a product. Yep. And so for us, the main things, we offer 100 different things to vendors, but the top 3 or 4 that really matter is all the customers you need and want in a given set of zip codes on the streets that you're already running routes, because this is a route driven business. It's not like I can drive 20 minutes across town for a $35 lawn mowing. This is, I need to do 10 $35 lawn mowings in 4 hours on the same couple of streets.
Yeah.
So we're driving you the opportunities for the same clients, in that same corner of town, and you get paid within 24 hours of the work you do. Those are the 2 main things: more customers and get paid quickly. Once we can prove to you we can do that, then the lock-in really gets reinforced with, this is one operating system for your whole business, one CRM, one place where all of your customers' information is, one organized place for scheduling, because now you know who's weekly, who's not, what days are supposed to be done. It's all organized into one thing to where you have an operating system in your pocket to where you wake up in the morning and you know exactly where you got to be, and you just follow the process, upload the photos of completed work, you get paid the same day. And it's the way business should be. Now, you don't start there day one. You start with 1 customer on GreenPal, but it's our job to get you to 100 customers in a year on top of our platform. And so we have contractors, a handful that are doing over $1 million a year of business on top of the platform. Most are part-timers, doing 20, 30 customers a week, and they don't want to go through the headache of passing out flyers or running a Facebook campaign or something like that. We can get them as many customers as they want and get them paid very quickly.
Got it. No, I love that. Now, if you wouldn't mind going into it, I know if I was a contractor listening, thinking like, maybe I'm getting tired of trying to find clients, I'd rather just have someone that does it for me and tells me where to go so I can make the revenue. How does the split work? How does it work on the financial side? Because I'd be curious about that.
Yeah, it's a very small fee, anywhere between 5 to 10%, depending on how much volume you're doing through the platform. So a lot like Uber takes 30% and Airbnb takes, I think, 20, 25. And, but we purposely have held the fees down really low, because of my background as a contractor. I know that the margins are already thin. And, if you're trying to take 30% of a lawn mowing cut, that's not sustainable for anybody. So we've purposely kept it very low, and that does 2 things. One, it creates long-term buy-in for contractors. So we're not constantly having to like churn and burn suppliers. Whereas Uber is always having to run, driver recruitment campaigns where like, refer your friend to drive for us, we'll pay you $400, because they're always churning through drivers. Our business model wouldn't sustain that. So we want to get a contractor on board and have them run their business forever on our platform. So in the long term, it does play out. But we have plans to make money in other ways as well, by offering like fintech products for suppliers, ways to finance equipment and finance the growth of their business. And then also, consumer side, like other ways to buy new products inside the app. Like for instance, when you go on Instacart, and you have your shopping cart full of items, there's like 4 or 5 suggested other items that they have built that all in house. And so we have plans to build something like that where you could add on fertilizers or other lawn care related products inside the app. So the first decade of this business has been building the liquidity of hundreds of thousands of users across, hundreds of cities throughout the United States. And then now we can just now start to do these really interesting things with other ways to offer services and value and make money.
I love it. That's beautiful. Question for you. You mentioned earlier in the conversation about how you were stuck and took about 5 years to kind of develop your sales process in the old business in order to kind of unstuck yourself, for lack of a better way to say it. What are some things you learned along that process of the sales? And I know because, you were in sales, you're in sales as well. Every day, everyone listening to this podcast is in sales in some form. It's all about communication. So first of all, what did you discover during that time that helped you unlock to go to 10 million? And then also how what you learned there made it possible for you to do what you're doing now, because it's all communication in the end.
Yeah, I think a big sticking point for me back then and for most founders is like this ego that comes over us, that we think we're different and we think we're better than our competitors. And like we get pissed off when we don't win business because we have some kind of like idea of why our business is better and why we deserve the business more than whoever won the business, or they went with the cheapest price. And that's all people care about is the cheapest price or whatever. And what I didn't really fully understand at the starting of that first company, and it took me a long time to learn, and I had to reinforce this in the second company, is the concept of value proposition, which is a simple like understanding of if I'm your ideal prospect, I'm the ideal customer that you want to do business with, why would I choose to do business with you versus anybody else? Yep. And the answer to that question always starts with because X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z ain't, we've got uniforms, our trucks are clean, our receptionist answers the phone.
Who gives a shit? Yeah.
No one gives a shit. It ain't integrity, quality, peace of mind, ingenuity, these things that don't matter that you like put on a wall. Yep. Honesty.
Yeah.
That's not the answer. The answer is because I am the only person you can hire for this job that can do it in such a way. So it's like for GreenPal, it's like, why, if I'm your ideal prospect, why would I sign up for GreenPal versus anything else? And it's because you can get your grass cut in 60 seconds, even if it's 4 feet tall. And that's it. Nobody else can do that. Yep. And so you got to figure out what that is for your business. And it took me a while to figure it out. Like in my landscaping company, we carved out a niche where we flat out were just better at small commercial locations than anybody else in the Middle Tennessee area. So if you had like 100 banks or McDonald's or KFCs or you name it throughout like 100-mile radius of Nashville, you could hire us and we would do all of them. And we could do them cheaper than anybody else because we were already going to these little corners of the region and doing 10 stops. Took us a while to build that competitive advantage, but that was our value proposition. So it's like, if I am the facilities manager of SunTrust Bank, why would I choose to do business with you versus anybody else? Because I am the only contractor in Nashville that can self-service all these locations at the cheapest price and fall in with all of your guidelines and do it without subcontracting to anybody else. I'm the only one. And you have to carve that out. You have to be the best at something. You can't just say, well, because we have clean trucks and uniforms and we call you back. Yeah. It has to be the best at something in your market. And until you figure that out, you're just going to have a miserable time in business. Just trying to like sell on price and getting pissed off when you don't win business because you're getting outsold by people who have already thought through these things. And a lot of times in life and business, if you do things that are hard, business will be easy. If you do things that are easy, business will be hard. Yeah. And I know that's like a cliche, but it's so true. And it's like, I always have to remind myself of it. Now that I'm in my 23rd year of trying to build companies, that a lot of times when you take the easy way out, it always makes things harder.
Absolutely, dude. It's funny you say that because that was my Facebook post like 2 days ago was,
oh, really? Nice.
Do the hard things now and life will be easier, or do the easy things now and life will be harder through so many different factors you can think about that, whether it's fitness or business or whatever.
Relationships, marriage, raising kids, all of these things, the bill eventually comes due.
Yep.
And all of the things you kicked under kicked the can down the road, swept under the rug, eventually have to come due. And the bill will be paid with interest. So, whether it's not figuring out the value proposition on your business, the day you decide you want to tackle that and build a sales process around it, it's going to be harder the longer you defer that, because you're going to have to unlearn all these other things and like address all of these other stupid things that you're doing that don't serve that solution.
Yep.
So yeah, it's hard, but that's what makes it valuable.
Absolutely. And that's part of our process here. At Yes Express, we actually go through what's called the About Me section, which is all the value prop. What makes you honestly different? And it's not the integrity. We show up, we have clean trucks. It's bullshit. People expect that.
Right. That's table stakes.
That is vanilla.
Yep.
We need Rocky Road. We need something that shocks them, that they can see what the value is in it for them from their perspective, not from yours. That's all ego driven at that point. They've got to say, holy shit, I want to avoid that. For instance, say design, like everyone designs. That's great.
Yep.
But if you're out there designing and you're like, hey, we offer 3D design. Yeah, everyone else does too.
Yep.
How the hell is that anything for you?
The hard thing is the realization that you don't have it yet. You don't have the thing that makes you better than your competition. Yeah. And that's the thing that's painful. And that's the thing that was painful for me, was realizing actually, no, we're not better than our competition. Actually, our competition in many ways is better than us at certain things. And so that sucks when you have to look in the mirror and realize this thing you've spent, 5-6 years building is not really kicking ass. And you have to fix those things and figure out what you're going to be the best in your market at. Yep. That was one of the things when I was building GreenPal, was that I realized I had to be the best, and I had 3 seconds to communicate what we were the best at when somebody came to our landing page. Where am I? What can I do here? And why does it matter? I had to answer those 3 questions. And the only way that we could get any kind of traction was focusing on one thing, focusing on just being the best at one thing. And so no matter what business you're in, you really, even if you've got a coffee shop, you got to focus on, I have got the best muffin that you can get in a 20-mile radius. Sure, my coffee is pretty good. It's like Dunkin' Donuts, but if you want a muffin that you want to tell your friends about, this is it. You have to have that one thing, or otherwise business is going to be tough.
One of the easiest ways, you tell me if you have a better way to do this, but the easiest way to find this out, ask your clients why they chose you. Just ask them. And then pretty soon write down, call 10 people, your top clients, the ones you would want to, photocopy and have day after day, and ask them why they chose you. And you're going to find a thread. Maybe it's the fact that they love your design process. Maybe it's the fact that they have seen other projects. You have a very unique style. We'll quantify that style because no one else has it, right? So it's going through and figuring out what your secret sauce is. Because without your secret sauce, everyone else can just do whatever they want. They can do, there's no differential difference between you and the other people. If you can't make it obvious why you're different and why there's a higher value in going with you, then you will always fight in the bottom rings. There's just no way to get out of it.
Every time I've been stuck in 22 years of business, if I just picked up the phone and called 5 customers, I'd usually stumble onto something that would get my business unstuck. It's just 5 or 10 customers.
The thing that's scary though, when it comes down to it, is now we have to actually be truthful, right, Brian? So we actually have to be truthful. And sometimes that's hard to hear. Right. It's really hard to hear when clients say, you know what, you really suck at time. You told me 2 weeks, it didn't happen. You were late. The project didn't turn out the same. So we just don't make those calls. We just want to just absorb it and be like, you know what? No, they're probably wrong. I know I did a good job, and just keep your ego in check. But when you're willing to put that ego out on the line and you're willing to go deeper and ask your clients why they chose you and why they didn't choose you, that's when you fucking learn stuff. If you want to put your business in a different position, you must do the hard thing. This is where personal development comes in play. You must become a bigger man or woman in order to do that and not be scared, because that's where the truth's going to be at.
And listen, don't do this unless you want to improve. I know a lot of self-employed people, friends that are fine with being, just kind of getting by one week to the next, and whether it be in business or personally, like a guy, I have a good friend of mine who's overweight, and he's fine and happy being overweight. He's not gonna get excited about losing a bunch of weight. And I've got another friend that runs a business. He's fine with being stuck at $500,000 And he's not going to get excited about doing all these hard things to get to 2 or 3 or 4 million. So unless you are excited about wanting to get to the next level, then don't do these things because they're not fun and they are painful. The one other thing that dovetails into these tactical things we're talking about is on top of picking up the phone and talking to 5 or 10 customers, do business with yourself. Dog food, or what they call dog food your own product, or secret shop your own product. Man, I've done this a handful of times in my last business, and it was so painful. Like I would listen to phone calls from friends of mine that I would like secretly have them like sign up for our services and stuff like that, just to hear the experience from end to end and walk in the shoes, or just, if you can do it anonymously through screens, then you do it. And then just see how you're treating your customers, see what they experience, see where they're confused, see where because there's this weird gap that emerges between founder logic and customer logic. And you're both looking at the problem and solutions from like these different like paradigms, and like you want to close that gap. And one way you can do that is by doing business with yourself. It's so enlightening, but yet so painful. So that's another little thing that every time I'm stuck, I'll do some of that to unstick the business.
Oh man, I love that. That's ballsy. I like that. Send some people in and see what happens.
Yeah, that's right.
We talked about earlier about, doing the hard things and then you'll have an easy life. It's, if you choose to do the hard things now, you get to choose. That word's underlined. You get to choose the hard thing. If you let it go and you do easy now and then come hard later,
that's right.
That choice isn't always yours.
That's right.
Right? It's like whether you're going to work out now when you're young and keep a fit body throughout your life, that's a different trajectory than if you just let it all go and then later want to reclaim your health. Now you've got a lot of limitations, right? So in the beginning, you get to choose the pain of working out every day. Later, it's chosen for you because you want to live or you have some kind of health condition. So same with business. You get to choose your hard. You're either going to choose it up front or it's going to be chosen for you later when you have to make hard decisions that you don't want to make. So that's a huge lesson I've learned so far.
It's so true. And that's what, it's what makes these things hard. And there's a book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one thing that the author, Dr. Stephen Covey, talks about in that book is, most of the times we confuse urgency with importance. And so we like every one of us as business owners, we get to the office and like there's all of these urgent things. And it's a ton of things like fires burning and upset customers and emails and vendors and we're just banging through the urgent things and we think we're accomplishing something. But the reality is you need to, you have got to carve out time for the things that are important, but not urgent. So these are the things like planning, strategy, forecasting, revenues, forecasting, and planning around, what people you're going to need. Examining your value proposition, being honest about that, talking to customers and figuring out where you're letting them down. These are important things that don't have to be done right this minute. And the problem is most of us as founders, we get caught up in the things that are urgent, but not important, or even worse, the things that are urgent and that may be important. And so we're stuck in this loop of not doing any of these things, like what you just said, the hard things up front. And then we're confronted with a point in time where now we can't make payroll. Or now we lost our biggest contract and we can't go get another one. Or now we got a huge tax bill that we never even knew that was going to hit us with. And now it's not like you said, we don't have choices because we didn't do those hard things up front. And what I used to do was I'd come in Sunday afternoon, 4 or 5 hours, and I would do nothing. There might be 100 emails that I needed to answer. I wouldn't even look at anything other than like 2 or 3 things and work on 2 or 3 things that were important, but not urgent. And if you can make time to do that, it does add up. It does compound.
I love that, dude. I love it. So one last question here before we wrap up. What do you think the number one thing is that holds people back from growing and becoming all that God created them to be?
For me, a lot of it has had to do with believing my own BS. So believing my own bullshit in terms of, well, I'm not a finance guy, therefore I can't study over that spreadsheet. I got to go get a finance guy in here to to decode this for me. And then you like do that unsuccessfully 3 or 4 times. And then you get so pissed off that you just go to YouTube University and spend like a week straight watching every damn video you can get your hands on the 80-20 of small business finance and whatever it is you're trying to do. And then you get like good enough dangerous. And then you just like then you innately understand it. And then you realize like those 2 or 3 people that you hired to like help you with it really weren't that good. And like you wasted their time and yours. And like, then you're almost ashamed of yourself because you didn't take the time to learn it. And so everything I've ever tried to delegate from a standpoint of like, of abjuration of, I don't know how to do this. You go handle it and do it great. And then let me know when it's done. That has always blown up in my face. And so ideally it's like, hey, I need you to handle it. Here's how I want you to handle this. This is what I expect you to do. Here's how I expect you to do it. Here's when I expect to have it back by. Here's how I grade the quality of if this was a success or not, because I know how to do all this. And so what's always held me back is not doing the hard work of understanding something, from innately before I tried to delegate it out. And so I still make this mistake today, I had to work with an attorney last year, and I knew this at the time, but I probably should have picked up 2 or 3 legal books on the subject, read those, and then hired an attorney. And I still made the same mistake. Hired an attorney and wasted $10,000 on something, and it wasn't what we needed. And I went back to the drawing board, read the books, and then I was able to hire the specific type of attorney for what I needed. So this stuff still haunts me, but that's something that's always tripped me up.
Yeah, man, I can definitely relate. You get to a point where you get so busy and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to hire somebody to do this. And then you look at it. It's not the same. I want to be clear to those guys out there listening. It's not the same as, I need to do everything myself. That's not what it is.
Very different.
Very different. So
different.
That philosophy will keep you in owning your job forever. Yep. Right. So it's a matter of saying, look, I need to at least become aware of what's going on. That's what my coaches have always done for me. My sales coach specifically, he's like, when we are launching things and getting in the Infusionsoft and building systems, he says, you know what, you could hire a guy to go out to Infusionsoft or Keep, and then you can just have them build all these systems, but then you'll have no clue what's going on. Right. And you would just be always, so you build some systems first. That probably won't work. Doesn't matter. You at least get a sense of what it does, and then
put in
hire
the reps.
Professional. Yeah, put in the reps, understand, become dangerous enough to understand it. And then you can get out there and hire somebody. So at least you can guide them, to your point. At least you can guide and direct them because you have some competence in it. Not a lot, but some. It's very different than just saying, I need to do everything myself.
It's a weird paradox, and that's what makes it confusing and hard. And that's what's tripped me up, because there is delegating too soon, and then there's delegating too late.
Yep.
And it's this weird spectrum that you can screw up on both sides. So a lot of new founders, and I've done this, delegate too soon, either out of laziness or they think they're doing the right thing. Like, look at me. I've got this team of people doing all these things. You have no clue what they're doing. Nope. And you're just pissing your money away. So that's delegating too soon. And then delegating too late is like, oh, I'm doing everything myself. I'm working 100-hour weeks. Yeah, we're getting stuff done. And, but my hands are in everything. And if I went to Mexico for a weekend, I'd come back and there'd be a big crater where my business was. Yep. Because you don't have any systems around you. And so that's delegating too late. And you have to be aware of where you're at on the spectrum, and always course correcting, because you can always fall into one of these buckets. And I definitely have at different stages of my journey, and just be aware of that happy medium between the 80-20, knowing how to do it yourself, getting your hands dirty, and then delegating from a point of stewardship of, I know how to do this. Here's how I want you to do it.
Yep. No, I love that. And, guys, if you're out there and you say, look, I've never stepped away from my business, or I struggle every single time, what happens is each time you leave your business, you create a vacuum, right? And all the little strings that are attached to you for all those decisions and all that stuff that comes on in the business, when you leave, then you're no longer there. So you create a vacuum. I think a vacuum is incredible because it teaches you very, very quickly what you need to start working on delegating, becoming dangerous in it, and starting to delegate out of it, right? Because if you're ever going to have a business that's going to be saleable, you cannot be involved, because everything else has to move beyond you. You know what I mean? So it can't be you the center of the hub and everything around you comes to you. You have to then just be managing the system, not be the center of the system.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Brian, I could talk about this all day long, man. You get me going with this. I love this. I love chatting with you. So if people out there listening, if they want more information, they want to connect you, they want to learn more about GreenPal, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, life's too short to mow your own yard, work on your systems. So just go to greenpal.com and sign up if you need lawn maintenance services. If you are in the landscaping business and want to sign up as a vendor, just go to the homepage, scroll to the bottom and sign up. Anybody who wants to reach me personally, hit me up on Instagram, Brian M. Clayton. Just drop me a DM there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian. I truly appreciate our conversation. I always love talking to someone who's as driven and as focused as you are and has learned as much on the street as I have. So thank you, brother, for coming on and sharing your knowledge. And I hope to catch up with you here in the future. And all the listeners out there, we'll catch up with you next week.